right, you guys, it's episode 77 of Inner Demons. And without further ado, I'm going to get straight to it. So check it out, you guys, real quick. Shout out to Sandman. I did not think I was going to be able to get this video out to you guys tonight because he's sick. I don't know what he caught. He caught that foot and mouth disease or whatever he caught. But he said he's still going to push this through, so I'm going to jump straight into it so I can get this to him. It's already late, but you guys should have this by the morning. So anyways, episode 76. I told you guys how I went on the campaign with Dancing Bear. Well, we both went on a campaign to get me back on the active tier. And at the end of the day, we made it happen. It's something that, I really didn't think I was going to be able to pull off. Nobody thought that I was going to be able to pull it off. Everybody in the county jail, all the COs, everybody was tripping. You got to understand, because of my status being a high profile, inmate, and because it's just everything that was going on with my case and everything that was going on in the jail, that was a pretty big feat to pull off. Just nobody thought that I would be able to get back on a tier with the fellas. And, I had pushed for almost 2 years, and I finally got back on a tier. Now, make no mistake about it. I didn't think that because I got back on the tier that everything was going to be all good, that I was going to get back up to the bay and it was all going to get straightened out. I knew that it was a 50-50, I had a 50-50 shot whether or not this was going to get cleared up. Bottom line is, I've never tried to justify what I said on the phone. Because of the things that I said, that right there was probably enough to get me deemed. Honestly, all bullshit aside, just based on the things that I said, regardless of the fact that it was because my girl was sick, she was dying, my wife, and that's for the viewer that said, put a little bit of respect on Vicky, call her your wife. Okay, come on, man. You guys are really critical, man. I'm not disrespecting her by calling her my girl. It is what it is, man. But anyways, not to get off topic. So, just that based on itself, the things that I said, if that was enough to get me deemed and people think that I should have been deemed for that and that alone, then so be it. So be it. And I knew that there were going to be hardliners that were going to push that line and say, you know what, Box, you know better. You're a leader. You've been around for a long time. You know better. So, even though I knew that I had a 50-50 shot at getting back on good standing, still, even then, I knew that was going to come with, that was never going to go away. That black cloud would have always been over my head. I would have went back up to the bay, said they would have looked into it. They would have opened up an investigation, looked into it, pulled all my paperwork, did all, whatever kind of, whatever they needed to do to investigate, question my co-defendants, everybody that was involved, look at the transcribed, the transcribed phone calls, go through them, every word, whatever they had to do. It was still something that would hang over my head no matter what. People would always remember. That's something that I would always be remembered for. That would overshadow all the good things I had ever done throughout my career. Without a doubt. Homies would have been like, I don't know, that situation with his case, So, was that enough? Was that enough to stop me from trying? Hell no. Again, this is all I knew. So, I knew that it wasn't all good. And I knew that at any given time, if this green light came back up, that, I was going to have to deal with it. But I was willing to. And people can call me whatever they want to call me, but I'm not a coward. I came out of that environment and I went back on an active tier. How many homeboys would have done that? Regardless to what people might say, I'm sure there is other cats that would have went out too. There's no question about it. So I'm not saying that, I did anything special or that, I did something that nobody else would have done. I know that there's other cats that have heart, that have went out in situations like that. But I'm just saying the majority would not have. Just trust me on that. I mean, look at the situation. You're on a tier and these cats are making an attempt. It was a embarrassing attempt, but they made an attempt. So with that being said, you land on a one of those funny tiers for about 2 years, not by choice, but by the county jails put you in that situation. And then after all that time you've been back there on that tier, you come back on an active tier with NF members, NR members, righteous homies that are functioning. So, I'm not saying that I did anything special or that, I deserve any kind of special recognition. I'm just another cat that was standing, I was standing on mines for my career. And it meant something to me. I'm not one of them type of dudes that could just from one day to the next say, you know what, I'm done. That's it. You guys got to remember, at this point, this is 5 years. This has already been 5 years into it. And I'm still, that fire still burning in my heart, regardless to what the haters are going to say. I don't care what the haters say. I know what I was feeling. I know, where my mind was at. The only thing that I had done at that point was, say the things that I said on the phone. And that was it. I hadn't talked to nobody. I didn't meet with law enforcement and start giving up information on anybody. I didn't do none of that. So in my mind, I still felt like I was still on the team. I was still part of the team. So anyways, with knowing that I was never discouraged once I got back on an active tier. I was never second guessing myself, man, should I do this? Should I, see it through? Should I, take this time, go up to the bay and take a chance of possibly, having to get into a life-death situation with somebody in one of those cells, because that's usually how it goes, right? You go up to the bay, and in a situation like this, they would have ran an investigation. And if the investigation would have came back all bad, I'm sure they would have tried to slide somebody up in the cell. We would have had to go at it. And I mean, best man wins. Whatever would have happened, happened. But, that's what happens in a lot of situations. Somebody gets investigated, they slide somebody up in the cell. And if that investigation comes back bad, then, they'll go ahead and sanction that green light. If it doesn't, then, all's good and you continue the program. But even with that all said, I knew that there was still a chance of something happening while I was still there in the county jail. Even though it didn't happen on that first yard when I went out with Dancing Bear and Thavo, I knew that there was still a possibility that it could happen sometime later on in the future. And at some point, Dancing Bear could have, sent a filter up to the bay and let Chuco know, hey, we got the brother back on the yard with us. He's functioning. He's here, so we're going to let him fight his case. And when he's done, when the case is adjudicated, then, he'll be on his way up there and everything could get looked into at that point. Chuco could have been like, you know what? Nah, go ahead and get rid of him. Go ahead and get rid of him. Something else came back or whatever. But, I was still willing to take those chances. I wasn't going to check in. That's not me. I could never write something down on a piece of paper telling the COs to get me off the tier because I was scared something was going to happen or because I knew I was going to get hit. That just wasn't me. So, I was willing to deal with whatever was going to happen. And that's ultimately what I did. So anyways, I'm on the tier and I never allowed myself to get complacent. I never allowed myself to get too comfortable. Dancing Bear was right there next to me. And like I told you guys, he's a lazy dude. He was a lazy ass cat. Never liked to write, and when he did, again, it was like him writing with the crayon, big ass writing, lazy as fuck, just scribble something down and had somebody else play secretary for him. But as far as him, dealing with household business and stuff like that, sitting there and responding to investigations and new arrival reports, IRs, all that stuff, he's terrible at it. So because he was so lazy And because I was right next door to him, everything that was happening in the jail was coming to me. I was basically the one that was running the jail through him. That's what ended up happening. And mind you, I'm still supposed to be on freeze. Again, for those of you that don't know what freeze is, freeze means that you're under investigation. Something's being looked into. You're under some type of investigation. It could be for a number of different things, but while you're on freeze, while they're running this investigation, you're supposed to be offline. You're not, nothing's supposed to go through your hands. You're not supposed to see nothing, no household business, no, IR reports, no, new arrival information coming through. When a new arrival comes through and they send a general filter around, for everybody to look at it and say, you know what, yeah, I do know this guy, or I don't know him, if I got any bad information or good information, none of that stuff. I'm just there. Basically, I'm just there. So, when they're taking care of their household business, I'm not supposed to be privy to none of that stuff. I'm just there on the tier, and I'm somebody that gets my respect, as far as, like, people can still conversate with me. The homies can still holler at me. They can still, play chess with me. They can still trade literature or whatever. But, when it comes to household biz, I'm not supposed to be involved in none of that. And I want to say let's say for the first day, maybe the first day or two, Dancing Bear respected the freeze, me being on freeze status. That's about as long as it took before everything started coming to me. After a while, it was like I wasn't even on freeze no more. It was just regular programs. Something would come in, they would go to the rest of the homies, they get filtered out to them, then it would come down to me. I would look at it. Dancing Bear would tell me, what do you think about it? Give me your input. What would you do? Give me some advice. And, once he roll it off me and I give it back to him, he'd be like, hey, can you just go ahead and strike that up? So, I'm running the county jail through him, straight up. I bullshit you guys not. So anyways, we stayed in South Max, I want to say, for about a good 4 months. And again, that was probably the best tier that I was on in that whole 10 years in that county jail. Everybody on that tier had done time. They pretty much had done time in the Bay. They knew how to do shoe time. The Asians that were up there were like 6 of them. They were all disciplined, some good, solid individuals. Everybody was on, that it was just a good program. We studied throughout the day, and then, the whole tier would be quiet. We'd be studying, and I had the iPod. So I had my iPod, and this was the other thing. I had my iPod with the phone calls on it, but I also had got somebody to download a bunch of music on my iPod. So what I would do during the daytime when we be in there studying is I'd make a little cone like you used to make in the Bay, right? You make a little cone, and it's as simple as just rolling up a piece of paper, like this, making it into like a little conductor. And then you take a headphone and you stick it in, and this becomes like a speaker. It kicks out a little bit of volume. So I turn it up, and everybody could hear the music throughout the day. So I had oldies, I had rap, I had all that shit on my iPod. Literally hundreds of hours. So it was a solid tier. It was a solid tier. So we stayed up there for about, like I said, a good 3-4 months. And then one day, all of a sudden, classification came up and said, everybody on this tier, you guys all roll it up. You guys are all getting moved. And now I'm thinking, like, fuck, man, they're gonna send me to the 4th floor now, and I'm gonna end up getting separated. So, although these guys on the 4th floor, the other Norteños up there, they're gonna have to respect, me being back on an active tier. because the whole jail knew about me. So as soon as I hit the fourth floor, I'm sure everybody's gonna be like, damn, that's Boxer right there, So and if everybody gonna be gossiping and so when they came on the tier and they said, we were all moving, I asked Cobb right there, I'm like, hey, where are we going? And luckily he said half of you are going down to Second East Max. The rest of you are going to the fourth floor. He's like, you're going to Second East Max. You Dancing Bear, so it was cool. I was still, things would still, it's just a better situation for me based on the circumstances, based on the politics and the situation I was in. Second East Max was the best place for me, for us, for Dancing Bear, and for everybody that was supporting me at that time. So, everybody, including, the other Norteños that were on the tier, Davo and, Smiley, we all went to Second East. They sent some of the Asians, some of the other cats, they shot them up to the fourth floor. So we get down to Second East. Now, Second East, I stayed down there for about a good 2 years, and there's a lot of shit that happened over the course of time. So, like I said, there was a lot of things that happened over the course of 2 years while I was down there in Second East, and I'm gonna make sure that you guys get all of it. I'm gonna break it up so that you guys get the full breakdown of everything that happened down there, because a lot of shit happened. I mean, there were removals. I got into it with the COs. Lencho came down there. Lencho came into the jail while I was down there. A lot of these guys got sloppy, got themselves indicted while I was down there on that tier. There's just a lot of things that happened. So anyway, that day that they came up and said that we were all moving, the whole tier was like, damn, man. Like I said, it was a good tier. We had our way up there. We had some cool COs that were running that tier. And, it was a cool spot. Time went by up there, went by fast. There was no drama. So it was cool being up there. But all good things come to an end. So we're all rolling it up. They came in there with like 50 bags and said, you know what, everybody just pack your shit. So the whole tier literally is in there just packing. We're all rolling our shit up, packing up our property. And, one by one, as people, got their shit together, they were all packed up. They started running them. Some of them to the fourth floor, some to Second East. So, later on, a couple hours later, I had a lot of property. I literally, I had a lot of property. For the time that I was there, just a lot of it was legal work. It had started to accumulate, transcripts, police reports, just a lot of property. I used to have a bin. They used to have to bring a bin up to my cell to move all my property. That's how much I had. I had canteen, then I had my weight bags, and I had too much shit. I was not no light packer, no light traveler. So anyways, they get a bin and they go ahead, they facilitate the moves. We all get down there. So we get down to, Second East Max, and at that time, Baby G was still down there. Eric Zarate. Baby G was part of my regiment. He had been housed down there since I was in the observation cell. So he's down there. I want to say Thavo was down there. Thavo from Brotherhood was down there. There were a couple good homies that were down there. And I don't know, they must have went through earlier in the day and rolled a bunch of people up and shot them all to the fourth floor because there was a lot of empty cells. And, we slid right up into those cells. China came down with us, a couple of the Asian cats, the ones that were real cool. China, another Asian cat named Sonny. So for those of you that, were in Santa Clara County Jail at that time, you guys might remember Sonny. So there was an individual that I want to say it was around 2005, 2006. There was a pedophile that got busted out in San Jose, and this dude had like 100 charges. It was this dude was doing some foul shit. I want to say it was child porn or some shit that he was involved in, and everybody knew about him. He was a straight scumbag. And he was going to trial at the same time that Sonny was going to trial. I'm just telling you guys this quick story time, not to get off topic, but those of you that were there at the county jail, you might remember Sonny by this incident right here. So anyways, Sonny's going to court at the same time this guy's going to court. This guy's a known child molester. Like I said, his shit was all over the news. He had a lot of cases. He had molested a lot of kids. So everybody hated him. They despised that cat. I can't remember his name. But anyway, Sonny was going to trial at the same time this dude was going to trial. And Sonny he was my neighbor, and he went to trial that day. It was like the third or fourth day of his trial, and that other guy was going to trial on his cases. And I guess what happened is they put them right next door to each other down in the court tunnels. They put them in two holding tanks, and they came and gave Sonny his clothes, his personal clothes for, his trial, that they let you wear your personal clothes. And, they brought this other guy his clothes. Well, I want to say after they got dressed out, when they went to retrieve the boxes that they had the clothes in, they opened up both doors at the same time. And this guy stepped out, and Sonny's door was open. Sonny shot up out of there like a torpedo and got one good punch in, smacked this dude's nose, flattened his nose, bust his nose real good. They jumped on Sonny, the COs, roughed him up. But later on that day, when Sonny came back up to the tier, there were like 15 COs that came on the tier just to congratulate him. And they all did it with trays of food. So the officers that work in the county jail, they get what's called ODR, officer dining room food. And it's not nothing, it's not no bomb ass food, but it's way better than county jail food. It's like a delicacy compared to the county jail food. And a lot of these COs were coming up with trays. They were, hey, Sonny, here, man. You know what I mean? I'm glad you got that motherfucker. So it was cool. It was cool. Even though they roughed Sonny up a little bit, he got blessed with so much food that we all ate good that day. He looked out for everybody on the tier. But anyways, back to what I was saying. So, so Second East Max, it ended up being a better tier as far as the location for a number of reasons. We had a lot more access down there, from the other parts of the jail as far as getting a lot of the paperwork that was coming through, the rosters and the reports and all that stuff from Elmwood, from the fourth floor. So as far as that, it was a better spot. We had a lot more action. But not only that, Second East Max, it was lit up. It was just a better tier. It seemed like it was just a better tier. I don't know how else to explain it to you guys. North Max was dark. It was gloomy. And believe it or not, that can have an effect on some people will stress out in that type of environment. I bullshit you not. I've been doing time, for practically all my life. And you'd be surprised, just something as small as the lighting on the tier can have an effect on your morale or, your mood. You're in a dark, gloomy environment, you're going to feel dark, gloomy, and stressed out. Second East Max, there was a lot more TVs. It was lit up. It just seemed like there was a lot more going on down there. So, we're down there in Second East Max. And again, Dancing Bear, they moved Dancing Bear right next door to me. So one of the things that I started to throw in Dancing Bear's ear was that I knew Lencho was running around out there in the streets of San Jose. And I knew it would be just a matter of time before that fool came through the county jail. And it wasn't Lencho that, I was really worried about. It wasn't him as an individual. What it was is, what he would be capable of doing because of the situation I was in. I was at a disadvantage. I was on freeze. So it's like my wings were clipped. He comes through the jail. What's going to happen if Dancing Bear is not there? Lencho, no doubt in my mind, would have started pushing an agenda. He would have been like, what is this dude, doing on an active tier? How did he come? And once he found out that, where I was at, and then that I came back, I'm sure he would have started trying to question it, and he would have tried to play Mr. Big Shot and started pushing lines against me. So my whole thing was I started throwing that in Dancing Bear's ear. Bro, what's going to happen? He was just there. Dancing Bear was just there on an appeal, which meant that he was only going to be there for a limited amount of time. Regardless to how long that appeal went on for, he had a date coming up within, it was like, at that time, it was like a month or two. So he was short. Technically, he was short to the house. So that's something that I continued, to put in his ear, because I was looking ahead to see, like, well, what if this situation comes up? Or, hypothetical situations, I was throwing them out there. If this guy lands here, what if he does this? And what if that happens? I wanted to make sure that I didn't care what Lencho did in the county jail, as far as him and his program and how he abuses the homies and all that. There was nothing I could do about that. I had to just take a back seat and let him do his thing. I didn't care about none of that stuff. What I did care about was him trying to get involved in my situation. As long as he left me the fuck alone, that's all I really was concerned about. But I knew that he wouldn't be able to do that he would want to push that issue. We've always bumped heads, in the past, and I knew that if he did come into the jail, he would have an opportunity to get me when I was vulnerable. Meaning to go ahead and try to put a green light out there and have these guys try to get me off the tier, or when we go out to the yard, try to force the issue. And again, I told you guys in the last video that, Dancing Bear he's real confident about himself. His whole thing was like, man, fuck that dude. He'd rather French kiss a rattlesnake than to fuck with me. And, it's funny, and it all sounds good, but at the end of the day, I didn't have a whole lot of confidence in that. And I was like, yeah, that's all good, bro, and that's funny and everything, but I know for a fact he comes through here, this is what he's gonna, he's gonna try to push this. And Dancing Bear's like, look, bro, look, you got the O behind you. You got the organization behind you. They're on board. They know what's happening. Lencho comes through here, he got no jurisdiction. He's got no authority over your situation. I'm going to get out, and one of the first things I'm going to do is I'm going to tap in with Lencho, and I'm going to let him know, hey, as far as with Boxer, stay the fuck out of that situation. They're dealing with it. They know what's going on. It's not your business. So if you wind up in that county jail, he's back on an active tier. I helped him get back there. The brothers up in the Bay know about it. So, just keep keep to your business, and leave that situation alone. And I wanted to make sure that he at least did that. That's all I was asking. That was something I continue to put out there constantly. Anyways, the other thing about Second East that was crazy was, and I know a lot of people, a lot of cats, they say they know how to make wine. They really know how to make it, man. I really know how to make that shit. And I'm talking about some fire water. I'm talking about that kind of wine that when, you take a swig of that shit, you can taste the alcohol coming out of your nostrils. I'm dead serious. I learned how to make wine, real good ass wine, from them cats on death row. Matter of fact, it was Mexican Mafia members that taught me, Ronnie and Hector Ayala. Well, it was really Hector Ayala, Ronnie's brother. And, Chato from Matavilla was there at that time. Left Hand, Jarvis Masters, the BGF member that was there for spearing and killing the sergeant back in the 80s. These guys, that's all they did was drink on the weekends. They made batches, but this wine was fire. And, it was all in the kicker. If you had a good kicker, you could turn some mop water into some fire. As long as your kicker was good, that's all that matters. So, when I was down there in Second East, I was making a lot of wine, and it wasn't I wasn't the one that was, just making it on my own. They were asking me to make it down there. Dancing Bear used to drink. The other homies down there were all alcoholics. So, I'm on freeze. I'm kicking back, just trying to maintain a low profile, do my thing. I study my case in my cell. And that's what I was doing. On the weekend, my thing was football. China was Las Vegas. He opened up, the betting circuit. We had parlays going on. I would have $200-300 worth of soups betting on the weekends. That's how I passed my time there. Otherwise, I would have went crazy in that county jail. 10 years was a long time. But, throughout the week, I'd be studying my case. We work out. We have a good workout routine. And on the weekends, these cats wanted me to make wine. So, I agreed to make it. Ultimately, I was like, you know what? That's cool. Send all your fruit down there. And, I would make batches of wine, probably like 30-40 tumblers. I'm talking about some big ass batches. The whole bin, the plastic bins that they give you over there in Santa Clara County would be full. I'd have a bag. Obviously, I put the bag in there, but the bag would fill up the whole bin. Anyways, I had that shit down to a science. I had it down to a science. And, it was crazy. It was crazy. It wasn't done by design, but the alcohol, getting these homeboys full of alcohol, basically disarm all these homies on the tier one by one. I knew that I had to establish an alliance around me. I knew that I had to build a support base around me down there in Second East. The fourth floor, I couldn't do nothing about. The homies up there, I wasn't up there. And I wasn't really concerned about it. But because I was in Second East, I basically, got at each one of the Norteños on the tier individually and disarmed them. I established a relationship, a good rapport with each one of them. And it was to the point to where they all supported me. These guys were seriously behind me. And the alcohol, believe it or not, it kind of helped me accomplish that. It helped me navigate around on the tier. These guys would get full of alcohol, and it's like truth serum. Not only did it loosen up their tongues and they start talking about anything and everything. B man, we love you, brother. You know what I mean? We got faith in you. We're gonna, you're gonna be all right. We're gonna make sure that when you leave this county jail, everything's good, bro. We love you, homeboy. You know what I'm saying? And now I know a lot of that was just them being drunk talk, but like they say, a lot of the truth that comes out, when certain cats drink alcohol, and it got them to talk about certain things that were going on in the jail. You got to remember, I had my ear to the ground. I was listening to everything that was going on around me. I never allowed myself to get complacent once I went back to an active tier. I couldn't. If I would have allowed myself to get comfortable like that, it would have been detrimental for me. And I knew that. I would never drink before I went to the yard, or, when I knew there was going to be movement on the tier. That's when I would have started making mistakes. That's when things would have started happening that, I would have missed. And, once you've been on a tier for so long, for an extended period of time, once you've been around individuals for an extended period of time, whenever there's a break in monotony, whether it's something changes, I became good at picking that kind of stuff up in the climate. And, my survival depended on it. That's one of the things that saved me in prison is, those types of things right there. My awareness was peaking. And again, it had to be. So like what I'm trying to say is, like, I studied every individual that was down there on the tier, their characteristics, how they programmed, just their demeanor, their character, their program, all that stuff. And, I would look for any kind of changes whenever they would come by, walk by my cell. If there were, there was a different look in their eyes, if, their posture changed, if it was different from any other time that they walked by my cell, I would pick up on those things. Some guys are not good at hiding shit. If, they're plotting against me, I'm pretty sure I would have been able to pick up on that stuff. And later on, I actually did. But I'm not gonna go into that just yet. I'll get into that when we get to that part. But I had to. Again, my survival depended on it. I had to be the one to look out for myself down there. Nobody else was gonna do it. I had to make sure that I stayed on top of my security. And if I made mistakes, I would end up, I would pay for it. That's what happens. So again, like I told you guys earlier, there were a lot of things that happened while I was there in Second East. And the only thing I'm going to really get into at this point, so I want to break it up into episodes. But the only thing I'll say in this episode right here is when we got down to Second East, for a brief time, Kramer came through. Jaime Kramer, stick him up. He came through. And, when he came through, so, Kramer, from everything that I had heard, there were 4 C's that were out there on the streets at that time with Lencho. And from everything that I had been hearing, these 4 were trying to involve themselves in my situation. So when Kramer came in, I didn't let him know that I knew about it, but he came on the tier and I was watching him. I was watching him. I was listening to him. He's a little guy. He's a little guy, but I wanted to see if he was going to try to push that issue. And, obviously he didn't. And I knew Kramer. I knew him from the Bay. When we were both in C6 together, the tower used to let us out and he would let us fish to each other. So he passed all his communications over to me when I was in B-Pod in the pre-release program over there. So I knew him from up in the Bay. He hit the tier and basically acted like nothing was different, but I knew that he was out there pushing that line. So from that point, I didn't really care for him, and I didn't really have a whole lot of words for him when he was on the tier. We would communicate, but I kept it to a minimum. But, when he hit the tier, these guys were sloppy with their business. Dancing Bear started putting it out there that, since you're busted, I'm going to go ahead and take over your crew. Everybody that you had functioning under you, I'm going to go ahead and link up with these cats. Your connection, everything that you had going on out there. I need all of that. Basically, he was trying to take his regiment from him, his guns, his dope, all that. So while Kramer was there, this is what Dancing Bear was doing. They were working on that transition. Literally, all his manpower, he was giving to Dancing Bear, and they were establishing those contacts while Kramer was still there. Because Kramer only stayed there about a week, and then they shot him to, I think they shot him to Santa Rita. But the one thing I will say about Dancing Bear, this is the only thing that I can say that I seen where he was smart. He was being smart about it. He played it smart. Is he never got on the phone himself. What he would do is he would use Mono from SJG. Mono and Looney, they were both from SJG, San Jose Grande. He would use those cats like they were his secretaries. He would have them call Kramer's contacts on the streets, and basically he would run everything through them, and they would be the ones to make the phone calls. So they were my neighbors, and I heard them just putting all kinds of business on the phone. These guys, half the time they would do it, they were drinking, they were drunk. So you guys can imagine how sloppy they were. They were just straight talking like they weren't even recording. I even got at them a couple times on paper. I was telling them, hey, man, you guys need to cut that shit out, man. You guys ain't learned what happened to me and, some of my co-defendants. Bro, they're listening to your phone calls. You're going to end up getting yourself caught up. Make this dude, make him, make his own phone calls. You guys are going to end up getting caught up. I kept telling them. I warned them on several occasions, and they made no attempts to be discreet about it. Manos was a cool cat. Manos, he was young. He was a cool cat. He's one of those kind of dudes that you could tell he was from the streets and that he really believed in his hood. SJG was everything to him. And, by that same token, he really believed in the Norteño cause, or at least, he was a strong sympathizer. And when it came to NF members, he was highly respectful. He was one of those type of Norteños that, show nothing but the utmost amount of respect. He would have basically did anything he could to assist the NF. And that's what he was doing. I know that that's the way he was looking at it, making these phone calls because he was assisting DB. They showed him the utmost respect, and as well as me, even though I was on freeze. As I go deeper into this and I show you guys how I was being, treated down there and how they were interacting with me, it's gonna blow your guys' mind straight up. But Manos and Looney, they were the ones making all the phone calls. And again, I continued to warn them, but they didn't listen. And trying to get at them when they were drunk, when they were drinking, it was to no avail. They weren't listening. When they were drunk, this was Manos and Looney. These cats would lay on the floor. They lay on the floor, and there were bars down there in Second East Max. So they lay on the floor, both of them. Obviously, were laying right next to each other on the floor, and they had their arms stuck through the bars with their tumblers, their cups, and they'd be banging the floor. B, send me another cup. B, send me another cup. Cana, por favor. You know what I mean? Come on, B, man, send me another cup. That's how blitzed them cats were down there. I had them sloppy drunk, and this is a fully active tier. If I would have righteously been running this tier, and everything wasn't going on that was going on with me at that time, I would have never allowed the Norteños to drink like that. They would have been able to drink on for social purposes, to enjoy, Sunday football and shit like that, but not the way that Dancing Bear was allowing them to drink. It was like they could get as drunk as they wanted to, and they were making mistakes. And Dancing Bear, being supposedly being the leader, an NF leader, he's the one that should have been correcting them or stepping up and saying, hey man, you know what, that's enough. You guys ain't getting nothing but 2 cups next time, because you can't handle it. Or you guys got to watch what you're saying on the phone. I was the one doing that, and I was on freeze. But anyways, this is probably a good place to stop right here, because what starts to happen from this point on, it's crazy. And we're going to get into that in the next episode. But I just want you guys to take this away from me right here, from this episode. I'm back on an active tier, and I'm pretty much running the county jail through Dancing Bear. Everything's going through my hands. Well, it's going to Dancing Bear, obviously. It's coming down there. Stretch, another Norteño that's down there. He's at Hermano. Looney and Manos, they're like the secretaries down there. So they're the ones that hold all the paperwork. They hold everything. And, at any given time, they would have a box lunch with, bullshit you not, 40, 50, 60 bundles of kites in there that were coming from different housing units, different blocks, Elmwood, all over the county jail. So there were so many of us in Second East Max. I'm just going to leave you guys with this last thought too. There were so many of us in Second East Max that what they did was, instead of letting us all out to the yard together, they split us up into groups. So I was going out with Dancing Bear, Davo, and a couple other individuals at that time. Over time, it changed. People left, people came, so the yard program kind of changed. But my point is when Looney and Manos used to go to yard with their group, I was the closest to them. I was their neighbor, and they had so much respect for me that even though I was on freeze, what they were supposed to do is send that box of kites down the tier to somebody else that wasn't on freeze, somebody else, another Norteño, maybe the Dancing Bear or Stretch or somebody else. But to do that, they to send their box past my cell, I think they were looking at it as I would have felt kind of disrespected, that, oh, you guys don't trust me. It would have made more sense for them to slide that box to me and to hold it until they came back in from yard. But technically, they're not supposed to do that because I'm on freeze, but that's what they were doing. They would send that box over, and again, it would have 50, 60 bundles of paperwork, writing pens, razor blades, all kind of shit. How did I know? No, why wouldn't I? I had to make sure that there wasn't something in there that had my name on it, that these guys, everything that they were telling me wasn't bullshit, wasn't some kind of smoke screen. And really they were, just pacifying me or trying to keep stringing me along until a certain point. So I'm watching everything. I'm not putting nothing past nobody at this point. I can't. My security depends on it. And again, nobody's going to look out for my security but me. They're going to rock me to sleep, if anything. And that's what they were supposed to do. If they had intentions of trying to get me, they're supposed to try to rock me to sleep. So anyways, with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and cut this one short right here. This one, I've given you guys a lot, but just take that away from this episode right here. I came back out of that environment. I'm running the tier now. So obviously I know everything that's going on in the county jail. And, I have status, although it's not official. It's through Dancing Bear, and it's because he's lazy. Anyways, with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and cut this one short right here. I'm going to try to get you guys out another Mexican Mafia story tomorrow. For those of you guys that are asking about what happened to Psycho, well, after that situation happened with Psycho, I don't remember what it's called, the SIS or something like that. It's like the security squad in federal prison. They came and snatched him up. They came and snatched him up and basically PC'd him up. He refused to be PC'd up, but, they were trying to push the issue on him. So, what ultimately happened to him in the long run, I don't know. I don't know where he ended up. I don't know how much time he ended up picking up for killing China Boy, but he fell in bad standings. Obviously, he killed a righteous carnal. So, he had a green light on him from that point. But I know they snatched him up and they were trying to PC him up, put him in protective custody because they knew that he was a target. Anyways, I'm going to go ahead and cut this one. I hope you guys enjoyed it. This episode 77. This your boy B, and I'm out.